Hello everyone and welcome to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. Today we've got a few things to discuss, including a couple of signings with the New York Rangers and the Edmonton Oilers, some more injury updates as some more players are starting to get a lot more healthy around the NHL, and some trade rumors involving teams like the Washington Capitals, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the Edmonton Oilers. We'll get to all of that coming up right now. Hello and welcome to another video here at the End-to-End Hockey channel. I'll kick things off today by discussing a couple of signings that have happened around the NHL. We'll start with the Edmonton Oilers, as they have signed Justin Bailey to a one-year, two-way contract that will have an average annual value of $750,000. Now, Bailey has bounced around the NHL for a couple of seasons. He's played with a few teams over the past couple of years, including most recently Vancouver for a few seasons. And he hasn't gone to the NHL yet this season, but he did get into some games last year. He split time with Vancouver and Vancouver's AHL affiliate. He got into 14 NHL games, didn't put up any points, but was an okay point contributor for the Canucks in a bottom six role. But he did play a majority in the AHL last year and had some pretty good numbers, getting 15 goals and 27 points in 30 games. So he was almost a point per game player in the AHL, which was pretty good. But so far this year, he hadn't really got much of an NHL opportunity. He wasn't offered an NHL contract, so he signed an AHL deal with Edmonton's affiliates in the AHL, and has so far done okay with their AHL affiliate, putting up 4 goals and 10 points in 17 games, so not as productive as he was last year. And the Oilers liked him enough in the AHL to sign him to a two-way NHL deal, so it's good for Bailey to get that two-way contract. I know he probably won't be called up right now unless the Oilers run into a lot of injuries, but putting him on a two-way contract does make him available to be called up to the NHL at some point in the year. Bailey is a okay bottom six forward, and I think if the Oilers were to run into a couple more injuries, they could easily call him up. I do think he would probably be one of the prime call-up candidates for the Oilers, but for now he's probably going to stay in the AHL. I don't expect him taking a push for an NHL spot right now, and hopefully he can continue to do well in the AHL and maybe push his way into maybe like a fourth line role at some point in the future for the Oilers, but for now he's probably going to be an AHL player. But either way, getting a two-way contract for Bailey is good, and hopefully he can continue to produce at the AHL level and maybe get an NHL opportunity later in the year. And the other signing was that the New York Rangers have extended bottom six forward Jimmy Vesey on a 2-year contract extension. They'll have a cap hit of $800,000, and it will kick in at the start of next year. Now, Vesey has been a really good bottom six forward for the Rangers. He bounced around a lot over the past few years. He did begin his career as a member of the Rangers and had some of his better seasons there. But since then, over the past 2-3 years, he's bounced around a couple of teams. You know, first it was Buffalo, then he's had some stints in Toronto, and then he had a stint in Vancouver. He played the entirety of last year in New Jersey, and he had an okay season as a depth forward. He was playing mostly 4th, 3rd line minutes, and he had 8 goals and 15 points in 68 games. So he didn't get into all of the games for the Devils, but did get into a majority of them, and he showed that he can be a really good bottom six forward. And he was able to earn himself a contract with the Rangers in the offseason for 1 year at league minimum, just for the Rangers could get him as a bottom six piece for them. And he's actually done quite well. He's playing currently top 9 minutes. He has spent a couple of games in the top 6, but for a majority of the season he has been on the 3rd line, so he's done well over there. And VC looks really good. He has only played 40 games this year. He's played in basically all of the Rangers games, and he has 7 goals and 14 points. There's only 1 goal and 1 point off his point total from last year, and he has 28 less games played. So he's definitely having another really great season for the Rangers. It seems like he just does really well with the Rangers organization. So I think extending him is a really good idea. I think he's going to be a key piece of their bottom six going forward. And now that they have him for 2 years, he can easily be a good speedy 3rd line winger for the Rangers for this year and a few more seasons in the future. And that's all I want to talk about for the signings. Next we'll go over to the injury updates. I'll start with the Vegas Golden Knights, as they had a lot of good news on the injury front this past week. As we talked about last week, how they were getting Eichel back and it looked like they were getting a little bit more healthier. Well, they've gotten a lot more healthier since then. Since last week, Eichel has gone back into game action, as we did expect. But on top of that, the Golden Knights did get back from injury reserve Alec Martinez, Paul Cotter, and Jonathan Marchessault, all off of injury reserve, while they did play Shea Theodore and Pavorov on injury reserve. Now, for the activations, it's really good for them. Cotter's been a really good top 9 forward when he's been in the lineup, and getting him back is huge. I know the Knights still are missing a few bottom six forward pieces like a Brett Howden, so having Cotter in the lineup is really good. And Jonathan Marchessault, same sort of thing, a really, really key piece of their top six and has been really one of their better forwards this year. So getting these two guys back on the forward group is huge. Getting Martinez back on the defensive end is a huge improvement for them. I know they've been playing with a lot of guys like Ben Hutton, Braden Packle, King Korzak on the defensive end over the past few games, with guys like Theodore, Whitecloud, Miromanov. Just the list goes on and on for the Knights with their defensive injuries. So getting Martinez back is huge, which it really strengthens that defensive core, and it just makes them that much better. Now, they did lose Dorofiev to a undisclosed injury, and he's going to be out for an unknown period of time. He has been placed in injury reserve, so he's probably going to miss it probably at least a week or two, if not more, but he was one of the call-ups to sort of replace guys like Marchessault and Cotter and Eichel, so losing him to injury reserve is not really a big a deal, and I think the trade-off for getting Cotter and Marchessault back to losing Dorofiev is pretty good for them. So I think losing Dorofiev for the next couple weeks is not going to be that big of a deal. Shea Theodore being placed in injury reserve is not too much of a surprise. We already know he was going to be out week to week, and he's already missed a week and a half, 2 weeks due to his injury. So him being placed in injury reserve is not too surprising, and I think he could easily come back whenever he's ready. So definitely good news for the Golden Knights to get healthier, and that forward group is almost completely healthy now. Just a couple guys like Howden out right now with injuries, and getting Martinez back to help that D-core is huge, and hopefully the Knights will continue to be a good team, as with the injuries they have slipped a little bit, and teams like the Kings and Kraken are breathing down their necks for the division title. So definitely good to get a little bit healthier for the Golden Knights. Over with Winnipeg, the Winnipeg Jets have gone a whole bunch healthier. The Jets were able to activate Nikolai Ehlers, Blake Wheeler, Nate Schmidt off of injury reserve, and got back Cole Perfetti from an injury as well. Getting all these guys back is huge. Ehlers has been out since the beginning of the season due to an injury, and he's missed basically the entire season, so getting him back is huge. Wheeler's missed about the last month due to a groin injury, so getting him back is huge. I know Schmidt's been out for the last month and a half. He was a little bit ahead of his timeline, but definitely getting Wheeler and Ehlers and Perfetti back is huge. That team doesn't have much offensive depth, and if they're having to use bottom six guys like Kevin Stunland and Christian Reichel into the lineup, as well as putting guys like Sam Garnier and Carson Kuhlman in the top six for some games, which hasn't been overly great for the Winnipeg Jets. So getting guys like Wheeler, Ehlers, and Perfetti back will be able to make that offense a lot more lethal. Those three are all top six forwards. You put those three back in the top six roles, and that team is phenomenally better. So definitely getting these three key forwards back is huge, and they've done really well without those three forwards for the past little while. On the back end, they've been okay. They have been missing guys like Schmidt and Stanley for the past month, but they have a guy like Ville Heinola and Dylan Sandberg who are pretty good defenders and have done really well in the third pair. So definitely they've been able to make do defensively. They still have a really stellar goalie in Connor Hellebuck, so they've been able to win a lot of games even without Schmidt and Stanley in the lineup. So getting Schmidt back is definitely going to help them. He's a really good second pair defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets and should be able to help them improve that D-core. But definitely getting Schmidt back on the defense is going to help them improve that defensive core. And then definitely getting Ehlers, Wheeler, and Perfetti back on the forward group is going to improve that offense immensely. So definitely good for the Winnipeg Jets to get those guys off of injury reserve. Over with Washington, we talked about last week how they were getting a lot more healthier, and there was some speculation that Nicholas Backstrom and Tom Wilson could both be back off of injury reserve in the not too distant future. Well, that's already happened. Backstrom and Wilson were both activated off of injury reserve on Sunday and got into their first action of the season. Wilson and Backstrom both started the season in injury reserve, and after the off-season surgery Backstrom had, there was definitely some speculation he might not play this year. Wilson was probably going to be out until December or January after his off-season surgery, but getting both back in early January is huge. I don't think anybody was expecting Backstrom to be back this soon, and for Wilson, he's probably back right around schedule, but getting these two guys back is huge improvements on this offense. They just got guys like Oshie and Ferravari back in the past couple of weeks off of injuries. So getting Wilson and Backstrom back is huge. Those two are key top six forwards for this team. Wilson's a good power forward. Backstrom's a really good center, plays a lot with Ovechkin. So getting these two guys back is huge. I know they still have a couple of injuries, like John Carlson's out right now and Connor Brown's out for the season. But basically, that forward group is as healthiest it's been all season. And the Capitals are currently in a really, really good fight for a playoff spot. Currently first wild card, third Metro in the standings. So getting these two guys back is just going to improve that offense, and it's going to make them that much more lethal going forward. And I definitely think with Washington now having Backstrom and Wilson back, it'll probably take a week or two for them to get back up to speed. But once Backstrom and Wilson are 100% and really going at it, this Capitals team is going to be one deadly team to be playing against. Over in Detroit, they've had a few guys recover from injury as well, as Tyler Bertuzzi has been activated off of injury reserve, and Elmer Soderblom is back from injury. Now for Bertuzzi, he's missed the past month and a half, 2 months with an injury. He's been out for quite a while. He started the season injured. He got back into a few games. He was back for about a week or two, and then he was back on injury reserve again. So Bertuzzi's season has definitely been derailed due to injuries. He's a really good top six forward. He's a huge piece of the Red Wings' top six right now. He was a pretty big piece last year, having nearly a 40-goal pace last year with the Red Wings, and he looks like he's going to be a really good piece for someone in the offseason. He's a pending free agent, so after this year, I don't see Detroit re-signing him, so he'll probably go somewhere else, but definitely he hasn't been able to show that he's a really good top six forward this year with all the injuries. So hopefully he can get back into game action and show that he's still a really good top six forward for the Red Wings, a really good goal scorer. I do think there is a slight chance that if the Red Wings are still out of a playoff spot come trade deadline time, Bertuzzi could end up being moved to a contending team for a playoff run. But definitely getting Bertuzzi back to try and get him a little bit more healthier and show that he's still a really good forward is good, and it'll also help the Red Wings offense as they have been slipping a little bit and are still a decent amount of points out of a playoff spot right now, so getting Bertuzzi back will definitely help them. As for Soderblom, he only missed a couple of games due to injury, so it's not too surprising that he's back. But Soderblom's shown that he's a really good bottom six forward for the Red Wings. He seems like he could be a key middle six forward in a couple of years' time for the Red Wings. So getting him back is good. This is his first season in the NHL, so getting him back into some more game action is pretty good. There's also some talk that Filip Zadina might be coming back in the near future, maybe in like a week or two as well. So definitely starting to get a little bit healthier, and that's good news for them as they're starting to fall a bit in the playoff race. And getting key guys like Bertuzzi and Soderblom back right now will really help the offense and hopefully continue to help them with their playoff push. And lastly, for the Montreal Canadiens, they have had a few injury updates. They're going to send some players out for the foreseeable future. Now, Sean Monahan, Brendan Gallagher, and Mike Matheson are all going to be out for the next 2 weeks due to a lower body injury, and they're going to miss the next little while. Gallagher got injured in a recent game for the Canadiens and was recently placed in injury reserve, so missing the next 2 weeks is going to be really hard for the Canadiens without one of their key leaders in the locker room. Monahan's already been out for the past couple of weeks, so missing another couple of weeks is not too ideal for the Canadiens. Monahan's a really good top 9 forward and a pending free agent, so he's a possible trade candidate come trade deadline time. So it'd be really interesting to see how he looks when he gets back from injury. Monahan has had a lot of injuries over the past 3 years, so hopefully he can recover from this one and be a really good top 9 forward still. Finally, with Mike Matheson, he's also been in and out of lineup due to injury this year. He only got into game action like a month and a half ago after starting the season on injury reserve. So the start to his Montreal career has definitely been riddled with some injuries, but hopefully he can overcome them. He should only be out for another 2 weeks, so hopefully these three are not out too long. I don't expect them to. Matheson's a good top 4 defenseman, and Monahan and Gallagher are good top 9 forwards. So they have enough pieces right now on their forward group to make do without these guys right now, and they're also not in a playoff race right now, so it's not too important right now for them to miss 2 weeks. But definitely, losing key guys for a couple of weeks is not going to be ideal. And then young defender Caden Gooley is going to miss the next 2 months with the injury, and he's going to be out for a little while. So Gooley was injured about a week and a half ago and was placed in injury reserve about a week ago. So now that we have some clarification to his injury update, it's not going to be good. Gooley is in his first year in the NHL, and he's looked really good. He looks like a key top 4 piece for the Canadiens going forward and in the future. So losing him for the next 2 months is not going to be good for them. He's probably going to be out until early to mid-March, so he's probably not going to get many games in for the rest of this year, which is really, really bad. He's been one of the better rookie defensemen in the NHL this year, so definitely think that losing him for the next 2 months is going to be hard on the Canadiens D-Corps, but they should get Matheson back in the next 2 weeks, and they still have a lot of good young players on that decor. So they should be able to make do, but they're also not looking at a playoff spot right now. So definitely hope that Monahan, Matheson, Gallagher can be back around the next 2 weeks, and that Gooley can recover fast and get back into game action, as those guys are really big pieces for the Canadiens right now. Now that's all the injury updates I'm going to talk about. Now let's go over to the trade rumor part of the video. I'm going to start with the Washington Capitals. Now, there hasn't been really anything around this right now. This is sort of just my speculation. But could Mantha's career in Washington be done? I think it's a definite possibility. Earlier in the year, when Caps were banged up and injured, Mantha was a good top 6 forward, definitely helping a little bit with the production. Definitely was a key top 6 piece for them, especially when guys like Connor Brown went down in early October, and that forward group was really hurting. But since they've gotten a little bit more healthier, Mantha's fallen down the depth charts. He was a third, fourth line forward when guys like O'Shea and Eller came back since the Christmas break. And in the first game with Wilson and Backstrom back, he was a healthy scratch. And that sort of seems to me like Mantha's time in Washington may be coming to an end. Now, there has not been really much speculation about a Mantha trade, except for the speculation last month that Elliot Friedman said that maybe Mantha would be a good possible trade chip to land the Capitals' Brock Besser. And I still think that's a possibility, but if you look at it from this way, they chose to scratch Mantha while they gave Sheary and Milano top 9 minutes. So it just seems like he's fallen out of favor with the Capitals, and he's not really doing overly well. He's got this year, next year left on his contract at $5.7 million, and he hasn't really done overly well. So I'm not sure how many teams would want to take him on, but I think in the right situation, he can still be a good middle 6 forward for a team. He's still a really good power forward type player, and I think that in the right situation, he should be able to get a little bit more ice time. But I think with the Capitals having Backstrom and Wilson back, he's sort of been pushed out of the lineup. I don't think he's going to be a healthy scratch for the next few games. I think they'll find a way to get him back in the lineup, but definitely think that Mantha's time in Washington may be coming to an end, and it might also have to do with their cap. Right now they have Connor Brown and John Carlson on long-term injury reserve, which is how they were able to activate Nick Backstrom off of long-term injury reserve. But John Carlson may be back before the season ends, and in that case, the Capitals would need to create cap space unless they were to have another injury. So, given the fact they need some cap space, and Mantha is maybe a luxury they can no longer have, and he's only signed for this year and next, so he might even leave via free agency next year, I do think it's possible we could see a Mantha trade, if not now, before the deadline, then maybe in the offseason, as I think the Capitals have a really decent forward group when healthy, and it just seems like Mantha's fallen out of favor with the Capitals. So definitely think that Mantha could be moved out of Washington, and it could be maybe soon. I don't know what the Capitals would ask it for in a Mantha trade. Definitely think they could probably ask for like a cheaper player back in return. I definitely think the Capitals are pushing for a playoff spot right now, so I'm not sure if they would really want to subtract Mantha from a roster right now. But it's definitely a possibility that I do think that if they were to trade someone due to their cap problems, and he's just not getting into the lineup right now, Mantha is a very likely candidate to be moved prior to trade deadline, and I think it's a situation we should all keep our eye on. Next, over in Philadelphia, on the most recent 32 Thoughts podcast, Elliot Friedman said that the Philadelphia Flyers may be willing to trade Ivan Provorov off of the lineup, and said that Provorov is a little bit frustrated with how things have gone in Philadelphia. Now, Provorov has been really good for the Flyers for a couple of years, but his production has definitely gone down over the past 2-3 years. In the season that was cut short due to COVID, his partner was Matt Niskanen, and Matt Niskanen really made Provorov a really good player, and Provorov had one of his better seasons that year, but then Matt Niskanen retired from the Flyers, and they've been looking for a player to play with Provorov ever since, and they haven't really been able to find another good partner for Provorov. I mean, after Niskanen retired, they had guys like Braun and Philippe Myers play with Provorov, but they didn't really gel well with him. Then they brought in a guy like Ristolainen and Ellis. Ellis has only played 4 games for the Flyers over the past year and a half, and he's been out due to injury, and it's quite possible he could never play again. So that never worked out. And Ristolainen, well, he hasn't been the best of defensemen. He's played really well with Sanheim, even though they haven't played too much this year. And then this year they went out in the offseason and got Tony DeAngelo to be the partner for Ivan Provorov. And he's done all right, but still, Provorov just doesn't look like the same defenseman. And I think maybe giving him a fresh start somewhere would possibly be good for them. He has 2 years left after this year at $6.75 million, so he definitely has a big cap hit. But I think for a good top four defenseman, there would definitely be teams interested. I know maybe some teams that come to mind would be like the St. Louis Blues, Edmonton Oilers, LA Kings. Those three could all use like a left shot defenseman. I know the cap would be really hard to work with, so maybe this is more of a off-season move if the Flyers were to consider moving Provorov. But he's a really good top pair defenseman, and in the right scenario, I do think he can still regain his scoring touch. I know he's only put up like 20-25 points this year, but I think 35-40 points is probably his ceiling for being a really good point-producing forward. So definitely think that Provorov could be out of Philadelphia. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee. I definitely think that Provorov remaining in Philadelphia is still a definite possibility. And I would definitely not rule it out, but definitely with Provorov not doing too well over the past few seasons, he's definitely been in the rumor mill for the past year and a half, 2 years. On and off, there's been trade speculations with Provorov not doing too well, that maybe a fresh start's in his future. And if there were to be a fresh start, it might not be the worst thing for him. So definitely think that Provorov is going to be a name to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks and months leading up to trade line and in the offseason. Definitely would like to know what you think. Do you think Provorov will be moved? And if so, where would he be moved to? And for what sort of a price would he be moved for? And lastly, with the Edmonton Oilers, just a quick update, a couple of recent reports. First, it does sound like the Edmonton Oilers want to give Philip Broberg a shot at being a full-time NHL defenseman. They want to give him a look before the trade deadline. And it doesn't sound like they want to give him a 2-3 game look. It does seem like they want to play him for about 10-15 games before the trade deadline. There are definitely reports that say that they want to see what they have in Broberg before they go out and make a move. But it does seem likely like they will still try and make a trade for a left shot defenseman. They went to the Western Conference Final last year, but the right side is basically the same as it was last year. They have CC, Barry, and Bouchard, which are really good defensemen. But on the left side last year, they had Duncan Keith, who was a really good top four defenseman, and he retired this year, and they didn't really replace him. They still have Brett Kulak, who's a good third pair defenseman, but he's been playing a majority on the second pair. And then they've had a couple of younger guys like a Broberg play on the third pair. So definitely think that they could easily go out and try to acquire a defenseman. Probably does look like it's probably going to be a little while before they try and go and acquire a defenseman, as it seems like they really do want to give Broberg a shot here. But in the future, probably closer to the deadline, maybe in mid-February, there probably will be some trade speculation as to who they could acquire and if it does make sense. I do think Broberg will probably play until closer to the deadline and then be probably sent down to the AHL. I do think next year he should be able to, if he can develop right, be a good third pair defenseman. So I think getting some NHL time is probably good for him. But definitely think that an upgrade on defense is probably the most likely for the Oilers and would probably be the best solution for them. I know there's been a couple of guys who seem to be linked to the Oilers or seem to be possibly good fits. I know if they were looking at rentals, I could probably see them go after a guy like Carson Seuss in Seattle, Nick Jensen in Washington if the Capitals do decide to move him. I know they've been linked to John Klingberg and Vladislav Gavrikov. And there have also been some other ones who they've been linked to. They've been linked to Joel Edmondson, who has this year and a next year on his contract, so he could be a good move for not only this year but for next year. I know there have been some speculation that maybe they could be linked to Jake McCabe or Jacob Chychrun. I know it does sound like Edmonton is on Jake McCabe's no-trade list, but McCabe has 2 years at $4 million. Chychrun is going to cost a fortune, and I'm not sure if the Oilers would really want to do that, but I definitely think it's a possibility that they maybe go after Chychrun. I think it's a little bit less likely. There's also Matthias Ekholm, who has recently been mentioned in the rumor mill. He has 3 years left after this year at 6.75, so definitely a pretty high cap hit. It will be difficult for the Oilers to make work, but I definitely think Ekholm could be a really good forward for the Oilers. And then they also have Erik Karlsson. I don't think he's going to be moved before the trade deadline, and it's going to be really difficult to make the cap work, but definitely do think that the Oilers acquiring a left shot defenseman is probably in the cards for them. And that even though Broberg's probably going to get a very long look right now, in February at some point, maybe early March, they will probably go after a defenseman and try and acquire one. So definitely want to know what you think. Will the Oilers go out and get a defenseman before the trade line? And if so, who do you think will be the one they acquire? And that's all I want to talk about for today. Remember to like this video and subscribe. I also do a blog which I will leave a link to in the description below. And I can't wait to see you guys all for the next video. See you guys soon.